Our topic assignment covers human resource management process, competency-based human resource management, knowledge performance, and high-performance work systems. The first two will be reported by yours truly, and the latter two will be reported by Mr. De Maculangan. Human resource management is a function of management concerned with promoting and enhancing the development of work effectiveness and advancement of human resources in the organization. These are accomplished through proper planning, organizing, directing, coordinating, and controlling of activities related to procurement, development, motivation, and compensation of employees to achieve the goals of the enterprise. The human resource management process, then, is a sequence of activities beginning with human resources planning and job analysis, moving on to recruitment and selection, on to employee training, performance appraisal, and compensation. And then it ends with the departure of an employee from the organization. This is the diagram of the human resource management process. Let's take it up one by one. Starting planning. Planning establishes the goals and objectives before the courses of action are determined, and this takes precedence before taking action, but all of this should be within the purpose and direction of the enterprise. This answers the questions what is to be done and how it is to be done. This becomes the human resource planning. Human resource planning, or HRP, is the process of systematically reviewing human resource requirements to determine the required number of skilled employees so that they are available as needed by the organization. I worked at the government, or I'm in the government service, particularly at the Department of Transportation. In our office, it may be hard to do regularly human resource planning because every 6 years we change administration, so that our plantilla positions, which was still laid down in the 1980s, has not yet been rationalized. Therefore, there are some skilled employees that we need because the organization is already growing, especially with the build. We hire not only the permanent employees but on a job order basis or a COS, contract of service basis. So therefore, we really need some human resource planning to suit the changing times and to go with the advancement of technology. Still on planning, we need to take into consideration the following factors in doing the HRP. These are the macro level: employment, unemployment situation, technological changes, organizational changes, demographic changes, skill shortages, governmental influences, legislative controls, impact of pressure group, systems concept, and lead time. There are so many things to consider into the human resource planning. And these are the steps. Again, we need to have the objectives of the unit, then determine the skills requirement and additional resource requirements to achieve the objectives of the unit, and then we do the action plan. The strategic planning is the overall approach and plan. This will answer the questions: who are we? What capacity do we have and what can we do? This means we do an inventory. What problems are we addressing? What difference do we want to make? So this is now the vision. Which critical issues must we respond to? Where should we allocate our resources? What should our priorities be? So the HR planning process would basically involve the following. First is to determine the organizational mission. Then we scan the organizational environment. Then we set the strategic goals and then formulate the strategic plan. And then we go back to our mission when we are evaluating our HR planning process. The human management resource process can employ this human resource information system so that activities can be done systematically. No. The HRIS is an integrated system designed to improve efficiency with which the HR data is compiled. Okay, at the Department of Transportation, we have this HRIS. This is the dashboard. So we have this personal information per employee. This is mine. And we do have our schedule, meaning our daily time record. We have our request for anything like for filing of leave of absences. We also have a record of our training courses taken for each employee. And we have our learning and development record and the payroll. This is still under construction so that the latter two are still being developed. This is how the requests for leaves of absences or official business purposes looks like, and we have our balances of our leave, so we will know if we still have enough leave credits to use during emergencies or some filial obligations or forced absences, etc., etc. Now, job analysis is an important part of the HR planning. It is the process of studying and understanding jobs, and this is a vital part, as I said earlier, in any HR program. Now, this involves staffing, training and development, compensation and benefits, safety and health, employee and labor relations, and legal considerations. This is being done by the HR professionals. After planning, we move on to recruitment and downsizing. Recruitment is a process of screening and selecting qualified people for a job at an organization or firm, or for a vacancy in a volunteer-based. Some components of the recruitment process. Mid and large organizations and companies often retain professional recruiters or outsource some of the process to recruitment agencies. But in the government, like in our office, the hiring process is done by our administrative service. Now, recruitment may be an internal recruitment, which could mean some promotions for the existing employees, or an external recruitment wherein new employees are hired. An example of how we start our hiring process at the government, like at the DOTR, we post our vacancies at our website. So this is an example of job vacancy postings. After recruitment is the selection. Selection is the process of choosing from a group of applicants those individuals best suited for a particular position At the office, we have our selection board who decides on who to select from the qualified applicants best suited for a particular position. And then hiring in the government comes in an appointment paper. This is an example of an appointment paper, and this is submitted to the Civil Service Commission. After selection, we have the orientation. Orientation is the process of acquainting new employees with the organization. In our office, we are oriented before in an out-of-town event, and then due to austerity measures, we move on to in-house orientation, and now during the pandemic, it's already virtual. After orientation, we have the training and development. Training and development refers to the imparting of specific skills, abilities, and knowledge to an employee. Training and development could come in forms like seminars, training courses, and other forms. In our HRIS, we record all our training courses taken, such as this. The number of hours is indicated because we need that for application for promotion. And even for new applicants, they also need certain number of hours of training, particular to a position applied for. Next is the performance appraisals. Performance appraisal is a regular review of an employee's job performance and contribution to a company. In the government, we have the IPCR, or the Individual Performance Commitment and Review. This is how we rate biannually for our performances. And if we reach a certain level of performance or rating, the DOTR, for example, will be given an incentive to provide additional monetary benefit to the employees for reaching, for example, 80% of whatever was set to be achieved. Then we go to compensation and benefits. Compensation and benefits. Compensation is the total of all rewards provided to the employees in return for their services. Benefits cover indirect pay, such as health insurance. This is an example of what a typical government employee receives as compensation. You have the basic monthly salary and other allowances allowed under certain law or enabling act. And then that's the monthly, and for the year, a government employee can have some bonuses and allowances, always under enabling law. So the boss in a government office cannot just dictate on what to give to the employees, because every time there is something to be given to the government workforce, it has to be enacted, or it has to be directed either by the president or any authority authorized to do such. For the non-monetary benefits, sometimes the government employees are given opportunities to train abroad. So this is an opportunity to go to other places outside of the Philippines or even within the Philippines. And then there could also be a collective negotiation agreement between management and the employees. some benefits could be given to the employees, like a rice allowance or a health insurance. And then we have the government service insurance system, wherein the government employees will have a monthly deduction for the premium payments, and this is also being, there is a counterpart, there is a government counterpart for that contribution. And then when the employee retires, the government employee will have an appropriate retirement plan, either on a monthly basis or a lump sum basis financial assistance. Then we have the safety and health. Safety involves protecting employees from injuries caused by work-related accidents. Health refers to employees' freedom from physical or emotional illness. For the government, we have the ECC, Employees Compensation Program. So for any injuries work-related, government employees can avail of compensation packages under the ECC. We also have the PhilHealth, so that every time a government employee is hospitalized, there is a portion that will be deducted from the hospital bill as a form of insurance. Then, as I said before, the CNA could have an additional non-monetary benefit to the employees, like a health insurance through health maintenance organizations. So when these are all properly implemented, these can produce high-performing or competent workers. We move on to competency-based human resources management. When it comes to human resource management, it traditionally has job analysis as its foundation that works like an operating system in a computer. Generally, the output of the job analysis would be the job description, which describes what people would do, followed by the minimum qualifications required of people who will perform the job. While the job description and the minimum qualifications are the frontline information in the hiring process, they cannot guarantee getting the right person to perform the job. On the battleground and in the real world, admittedly, some or many written items in the job description are not aligned with the actual duties and responsibilities of the concerned working individual. Potentially, there can be a mismatch of the job description with the competencies of both the office and its personnel. Job description oftentimes lists the work activities, which is very dynamic with the advancement of technology and the increasing competitiveness in work. Competencies may not necessarily be obvious in the minimum qualification standards, hence, hiring mistakes seems to be unavoidable. This is where the competency-based human resource management becomes significant. What is it? It supports the integration of human resources planning with business planning by allowing organizations to assess the current human resource capacity based on their competencies against the capacity needed to achieve the vision, mission, and business goals of the organization. So what is competency? Competency is a combination of skills, job attitude, and knowledge, which is reflected in job behavior that can be observed, measured, and evaluated. Competency is a determining factor for successful performance. The focus of competency is behavior, which is an application of skills, job attitude, and knowledge. So to illustrate a, a good understanding of a competency-based HRM, let's just say we choose 4 from the 11 functions of human resource development, which is recruiting and onboarding, training and development, performance management, compensation, and benefits. These are the areas where we could really use competency-based management. Okay, so for the recruitment, selection, and placement, usually we have the qualification standards. At the government, we have the minimum qualification standards. And then for the learning and development, when we need some skills from the employee, we have this set of skills that are required for the learning and development. Then for the performance management, we can have some key performance indicator. That's how we measure the performance of an employee. Then for example, rewards and recognition. Some companies may recognize some indicators. For example, attendance. Sometimes a company would reward an employee who has perfect attendance, but sometimes attendance is not a good measurement of how competent a person is. It does not mean that when a person goes to office every day, then that person is smart or competent. So we can see in the figure that the measurements are in different shapes. That means the standards are different, so that an employee may become confused because when he is asked to do something and it is not specified, for example in the recruitment and selection, and then he has to manifest some skill set during the actual job, then there is really that confusion because the standards comes in different shapes. And therefore, since we have different standards, these are not integrated into the system, and it seems like they are not related. So job performance may not be that successful or that maximized. But when we apply competency in the area of recruitment, selection, and placement, we use competency based for learning and development. For measuring performance of employees, we use competency as a measurement. And then for rewards and recognition, we also base it on competency. Now we can see we have the same standards from the 4 functions of human resource management. We can see that there is some harmonization in the standards. Therefore, competency runs across all the functions of human resource management. And this will be very important, very crucial in the successful accomplishment of an organization's mission and vision. It's very consistent and it's very visible, and it will avoid any confusion, and it always leads to what an organization's goals and objectives are. So this is how the competency-based human resource management plays a crucial role. So, the components of competency. These are the knowledge, skills, attitude, motivation, traits, and values that are demonstrated in an observable behavior. Those two, when combined together, consists or comprises competency, and they are very crucial in the successful job performance. That's what every organization needs: high-performing employees. That's why competency is very, very important. So let's describe job description and competency. Job description looks at what, whereas competency model focuses on how. Traditional job description analysis looks at the elements of the jobs and defines the job into sequences of tasks necessary to perform the job. Competency studies the people who do well on the job and defines the job in terms of the characteristics and behaviors of these people. So, really, competency is more on the how. It's more on the performance. So there are two types of competency. We have the soft competency or the managerial competency, and the functional competency or the hard competency. The managerial competency is a competency that relates to the ability to manage job and develop an interaction with other persons. For example, problem solving, leadership, communication, etc. Functional competency. This type of competency relates to the functional capacity of work. It mainly deals with the technical aspect of the job. For example, market research, financial analysis, electrical engineering, etc. We start with the competency identification process. How do we do this? First, we clarify the organizational strategy and context. We identify the competencies. How? We analyze the work role and process, gather data through behavior, event, interview, and focus group, then conduct benchmark study. After that, after identifying the competencies, we go to generate the competency models and then validate, refine, and implement. Why is there a need for a competency framework? Well, a common understanding of critical success factors and desired behaviors within the organization. The integration of organization process to competencies helps the interpretation of the big picture of concerns in day-to-day working. Now, it provides better management and effective decisions regarding cost-intensive processes like selection, hiring, and promotions. It also helps in the assessment, feedback, and communication regarding performance. And when it becomes standardized, then it facilitates a common culture. It's very important to have a commonality or a common culture in the organization. Working would be more harmonious and more productive. The competency framework is essentially a structured process to help HR staff develop their skills. A framework not only outlines specifically what HR staff members need to do to be effective in their roles, but also clearly shows how roles within HR relate to long-term business goals and success. What are the steps in developing a competency framework? So, as I said earlier, we start with the objectives. What do we really need to achieve? Do we need to be strategic? That could be an objective. How will it be used? We should define the format, scope, and structure. Then, it's very important to establish the project team. Then plan the communication and gather the competency data. After that, we assemble the draft framework, we gather feedback, we test the framework, and we prepare to roll out. This is very similar to the strategic planning. This diagram would help us better understand the competency framework. From the business strategy on the left, we go through a competency-based people strategy. And this involves the competency framework in the recruitment and selection, training and development, performance management, reward management, and career management. So if we have a standardized competency-based activities in all these functions of the HR, then we can achieve better business results. So the competency framework will be the basis for all HR functions and serve as the linkage between individual performance and business results. At the DOTR, we also have our competency framework, which is a comprehensive structure that describes different competencies with specific set of behavioral indicators and measurement criteria. So this one entails mapping of responsibilities, qualifications, competencies of specific position or job in an organization. So we can also see here that we have the 4 functions as I demonstrated earlier. We have the recruitment, selection, and placement. We use competency-based recruitment, selection, and placement. We use competency-based learning and development. We use competency-based performance management and competency-based rewards and recognition. So all employees had undergone filling out a form for the job profiling. This is an example of how we start our, it was in the form of Google form. So we start with this, with our position, onto the many elements that are required of us to fill out. At the DOTR, we have these proficiency levels or standards. We have the level 1 called the basic, level 2 intermediate, level 3 advanced, and level 4 superior. So when you rate an item, we need to indicate the appropriate level of competency. So our measurement is standardized. Maybe to illustrate some competencies that we would require from an employee, we can say that, like for a project assistant, the achievement orientation will be level 1, as against a project manager, the achievement orientation would be level 3, so etc. So that means it's clearly defined that the competencies for different positions would also differ, and even to the position specific competencies like teamwork. Level 2 is required of a project assistant, and for project management it's level 3. This is another illustration of how we measure competency in our positions at the Department of Transportation. Our Measurement is about basic, intermediate, advanced, superior, and not applicable. This is for the divisional functional competencies. It's for the division, it's not for the individual. Okay, under our competency-based HR, we categorize general competencies, leadership competencies, and core competencies. This is another competency-based measurement, but it comes from an outside. It comes from the Australian awards, I mean. So sometimes we are also measured in terms of competency, even from an outside of the organization. So the purpose of this is to provide the DOTR employees some training that we need that cannot be provided by the DOTR. So sometimes we also have extended help from other organizations like the Australian Awards. Okay, in our website we have the competency-based management information. So we can access this through our website, and we will learn, like people would learn about like the learning and development programs, so that we don't need to go or ask by phone or in person. We can just browse over the internet, browse over the website to look for example, learning and development programs. And these are all competency-based learning and development programs. These are the things that you can see at the website. Okay, so who does the competency-based human resource management? Of course, on top of the game would be the HR professionals, HR leaders, HR managers, HR champions. In doing so, they can refer to the HRM, Society for Human Resource Management. SHRM's competency model for HR professionals consists of 9 competencies. Of course, our HR managers, leaders, champions, and professionals should also be competent so that they could implement the competency-based human resource management successfully. So they would also need some kind of competencies in these 9 areas. So they must possess like human resource expertise, ethical practice, leadership and navigation, business acumen, consultation, critical evaluation, communication, global and cultural effectiveness, and relationship management. This is just one way of ensuring that those who implement the competency-based human resource management are competent people to do the job. So they can refer this is one way of ensuring that. So this ends my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.